Hello, beautiful beings, and welcome to the podcast episode of today. So today is an encore episode because I am going on maternity leave. I have hand-selected with my assistant Shania, we've hand-selected episodes that we think will be like just honestly your favorite. They're episodes that have either gotten really bad, really great feedback, or have been shared a lot amongst you guys, or have been shared a lot on socials and reshared on stories. So we thought, we'd bring back kind of the top favorites, or the ones that resonated the most with you guys. So I'm going on just the podcast is going on 3 weeks of maternity leave. I am going on 4 months of maternity leave, but fear not, fret not, I have created an entire back catalogue. So after these 3 weeks of encore episodes, you will be receiving your normal dose of a Monday episode and a head noise episode, and also some really cool mini series scattered throughout up until the end of the year. And then I will come back for regular programming mid-January after kind of the Christmas break. So without fucking around any further, enjoy the episode, the encore episode of today. Love you guys so much. So in this podcast episode, we're going to be talking about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I have referenced this a lot. I've brushed on it, and I go more in depth about it in my latest book, How to Chase Change, in the audiobook. So if you've listened to my audiobook, you'll know that I definitely touched on this substantially, because it literally frames how we approach any task, any challenge in our life. It frames how we approach our goals, what kind of drive we're going to have when we approach our goals, the mindset around our abilities and our capabilities. It's, how I talk about, your perception determines your reality. This is kind of a very great psychological foundation of why that is the truth. And once you really grasp the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, and more importantly, how to switch from fixed to growth, everything can change for you. Absolutely everything can change for you. It's like night and day, okay? You can go from someone who feels limited, scared, who's like, this is the ceiling for me, this is it, to someone who is not afraid of failure. You just approach it completely differently. You're able to achieve so much more when you come across a challenge. The way your mind processes a challenge is completely different to how it used to be, and therefore you're able to achieve so much more with your life and with, your time. It is, for me, if there's one thing that you're going to focus on to really maximize your time on this earth, it is growth mindset versus fixed mindset. So hopefully I've sold it to you. If I haven't sold it to you with that, then fucking go to bed, turn the lights off, and have a siesta, and then return to me when you're motivated or when you're pumped. Anyway, we're going to get straight into it. So basically, the concept of growth mindset and fixed mindset was developed by a psychologist. Her name is Carol Dweck. So she did a lot of research on intelligence, learning, motivation. She did a lot of studies on children and on teenagers, adolescents. And she introduced these ideas of growth mindset versus fixed mindset in her 2006 book, which is called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. But she was talking about this earlier than that as well. But that's a book that is worth having a read if you're interested. So basically, let's talk about the difference between the two. I'm going to break it down into what that looks like in the real world as well. And I'm also going to brush over a few of her studies as well. And then I'm going to go into how it is that you can go from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So a growth mindset someone with growth mindset believes that intelligence, abilities, and talents can be developed through effort. Okay? So they understand that when you're learning something, when you're persistent with something, it will cause you to then increase your abilities, increase your intelligence, increase your talents, okay? So they look at it as a correlation. The harder I work, the likelihood of me getting better at this is going to go up, okay? People with a growth mindset view challenges as opportunities for growth instead of an obstacle. So when they come across a challenge, they think this must equal me growing, because once I can overcome the challenge, I'm going to be much better off than what I was before I came across this challenge. And they look at challenges as this is my chance now to grow into that next phase of myself. Okay, they don't look at it as something that's scary or something that represents them not being good enough. They embrace failure as a learning experience. So when they do fail, it doesn't mean that they're thrilled to fail, but they're able to look at it and be like, why did I fail? I mustn't have studied hard enough. I definitely didn't study that enough. And I know I did really poorly in these things and I could have studied more on that. So they use failure as a way to kind of rehash what they've done and think, okay, how am I going to approach this differently next time? So it's very much a tool, a very useful tool for them. They value effort and hard work over innate ability. So they, instead of thinking, oh, I was born this way, or I'm talented, they like knowing that they are, or, when people say, oh, you're gifted or whatever, it's like, no, it's not about being gifted. It's I've worked for this and I've earned this. And therefore it means that anyone could if they put in that amount of effort and time and resources into learning the same thing. They also, and lastly, they believe that feedback is useful and it helps the performance. They don't shy away from feedback. They welcome feedback. They're also the kind of person that, if they didn't do well in a job interview, they're the kind of person that will reach out and say, would you mind giving me feedback on what it was about my application? What's lacking? Was it in the interview? Like, they are not scared to hear. They want the feedback. They're like, I need to know the good and the bad, because it's really going to help shape how I'm going to approach the next thing moving forward. So as you can imagine, if you yourself are this kind of person, or someone like this, it's a very flexible mind. It's very flexible. You're not attached. Your identity isn't attached to the outcome. It's more about the learning process and how much change you can create for yourself within your life, how much is actually within your control. The opposite of this is something called a fixed mindset, okay? So people with a fixed mindset believe that intelligence abilities are static and cannot be significantly changed, okay? So you're either born smart, you're either born an athlete, or you're not, okay? They avoid challenges, like something that's truly challenging, due to a fear of failure. Because imagine, if you believe that your intelligence or your abilities have a cap, there's a ceiling to it, and you're born with that, you can't really add on to that, then the thought of failure means I've met my limit. I've met my limit and I can never go further than that. So what does that mean about me? So it's scary and you don't want to meet that limit. So you're always going to perform just below that limit because you don't want to be confronted with what you believe is like, I can't ever do better than that. And if my identity is the outcome and I've failed, what is that saying about myself? They see effort as fruitless if someone is not naturally good at something, because they think if this is it's either an innate ability and it can't really be changed, then why am I going to try and try and try if it's just, for example, you're someone that's like, oh, my balance isn't that great, I'm not going to be good at surfing. You try surfing, you're falling over, you can't stand up. At no point can you stand up. So you think, told you, I'm not good at balance, I can't get up, I can't surf, it's just never going to happen, I'm not a good surfer. So then you look at other people going for the next lesson and the next lesson, and you're like, why would I bother trying again when I'm not good at it? That's kind of the mentality. Whereas someone with a growth mindset is like, oh my God, that was fun. I kind of semi-stood up and then I didn't, and this, and maybe, I kind of felt a little bit more stable when I did it this way. Maybe I need to be more forward on the board next time. Maybe I need to, and so they're already thinking, what could this look like next time? What could I try next time? They go the next time, maybe they stand up for a couple of seconds, then they go the next one, and before you know it, this person's surfing versus the other person, and none of them had an actual innate ability to surf, because this is one of the things you're obviously not born with. You have to actually try. But people with a fixed mindset, and I'm using that as the example, but this can be applied to anything, use this kind of mentality. This is very, very common when it comes to book smart or academic intelligence. You will see a lot of people being like, I'm not academic, I'm just not book smart. That is a form of fixed mindset, because unless you can say, and even when it comes down to I'm not book smart, you can say, I've given it a red hot go, it's not my thing, I don't enjoy it, I don't like studying. That's fine to be like, that's not what really lights my fire, nothing wrong with that. But I don't believe that you can just say I'm not intelligent. I just feel like if you really put your mind to it, like what I found really interesting is a lot of people would say to me, oh my God, you must be so smart. You must be so smart, when I was doing the masters. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with intelligence. And I don't deem myself necessarily smarter. If anything, I look at a lot of the people around me and I'm like, wow, if only I could, especially in the degree and the people that were studying around me, I thought, wow, imagine if I had their intelligence, or if I had this. It's not like I'm viewing myself as necessarily intelligent or not intelligent, but I was kind of looking at any one of you guys could do what I'm doing if you were interested and if you wanted to dedicate the time. I don't think that what I do or what a lot of other people do or whatever, it's not really a mark of I'm born more intelligent, not at all. And also, I felt like it was almost like a bit of a slap in the face. I wanted to be recognized for the amount of effort that I had put into what I did. I'm like, don't tell me I was born smart, because I absolutely was not. This is effort. And I liked the acknowledgement of effort more so than the acknowledgement of me being intelligent, okay? I preferred that. I preferred people knowing that I had to actually work hard for it, then it just came easy to me. So yeah, they see effort as fruitless. So if you're not naturally good at something, they're not going to bother investing too much time and effort into it. They view failure as a reflection of inherent lack of ability. Okay. Now, I want you to really ask yourself, which one of these am I? Because if you're someone who's a fixed mindset, admit it to yourself, because this can change. And in not that much time, okay? But if you are someone that when you fail, you're like, I'm never doing that again. Oh my God. Like I'm not that smart. I thought it was smart. I'm not that. And it really affects you when you fail at something, versus like, yeah, like for sure I was not as prepared as the person next to me, or like, oh, for sure. Like, and sometimes there are external factors that can affect the outcome of, a performance of something, or how you performed on a test or whatever. But in general, I think people with a growth mindset can look at it and be like, I know I could have studied harder. I know there was stuff I could have done that really didn't use absolutely everything in my tank to do this thing. Versus someone who, if they're like, oh, I'm pretty smart, I've studied what I need to study, I'm pretty smart, and then they fail, they're like, what is this saying about my inherent lack of ability? I am not able to do this. And then they're like, I can't test. I don't test well. Then they panic in a test because they've got this fixed mindset of their ability. Okay. They also tend to ignore criticism, or they will take it extremely personally instead of using criticism as a way of improving. They'll look at it as a stab to them, as a stab to their identity. It really hurts when they receive criticism, because if they've got this belief that they can't really change what they're doing, then criticism would hurt, because it's like, well, I can't do anything about it. It's like when someone criticizes your appearance, you can't really do much about your appearance. So it's a personal attack. But when someone gives criticism around performance, they perceive it in the same way as if someone was just attacking you. Okay, that's the same reaction they're going to have in their body. Now, let's look at this as far as like real world impact. So Carol Dweck, this research that she's done, and go check her out. If you're interested in this topic, there's so much published work by Carol Dweck, by Dr. Carol. I'm pretty sure she's a doctor. It's just amazing. She's got a great body of work, but all her research has been applied in education, in business, in sport, in personal development. For example, in education, she found that students with a growth mindset are way more likely to persist in difficult subjects. So they're like, I haven't done well, but I can keep going. I can keep trying. I'll try it this way. And because of that, they actually end up performing better than people with a fixed mindset. In the workplace, they found that employees who have a growth mindset are a lot more adaptable. And on top of that, they're also very open to feedback and can use that feedback in a positive way. So they actually get further in their careers. In relationship and personal goals, people with a growth mindset are more resilient, and they're much better at overcoming setbacks within a relationship. They'll look at it as, this is something that can be improved on. This is something that we can work on. They don't look at it as like, well, if this isn't going to work, it's not going to work. It can't get better. This is it. This is who I am. I can't change. I can't, you take me for my good. You take me for my bad, all of that. And they're kind of shut off. They can't take criticism. So they really struggle in relationships, and they struggle with their relationship with themselves as well. So let's look at, I want to bring up 2 studies that Carol did that I think are very, very good. So one of them is It's known as the praise experiment. This was run in 1998, and it was the researchers were Carol Dweck and Claudia Mueller. So the objective of this study was to test how different types of praise affected children's motivation and resilience after failure. Now, this is so fascinating. If you're a parent or if you work with children, this is gold. This is worth its weight in gold, okay? So the method was, they used a study sample of around 400 fifth grade students, and they were given a bunch of puzzles to complete. So after solving the puzzles, after the kids all solved the puzzles, they received one of two kinds of praise. So there was the fixed mindset praise, which is you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so smart. You know when you tell children, wow, you must be so smart, you just finished this, you're so smart. So they're focusing on innate intelligence. You are smart, or you must be so smart that you're able to do this. Then there was the growth mindset praise, which is, wow, you worked so hard, you worked really hard. So they're focusing on effort, they're focusing on perseverance, and they're giving them praise for their effort and for their perseverance, okay? Then they were given a harder puzzle. So the two groups of children were given another puzzle, but the puzzle was harder, okay? And they observed how the children responded to this harder puzzle. Children who were praised for their intelligence, so the fixed mindset form of praise, were way more likely to give up when they were faced with a harder problem because they're told, you're so smart, and then they come across this harder problem. They're like, I'm not going to be able to do this. I need to just back out, right? They chose easier problems in the future to maintain their smart label. Okay, so that way, as long as I'm achieving and completing and winning everything, I'll just choose the things I know I'm able to complete. So that way people still call me smart and say you're able to finish and complete everything you set yourself out to do, but they're strategically picking easier things. And then they also enjoyed the whole experience a whole lot less. They didn't enjoy the challenge, or they just enjoyed it less. The children that were praised for effort, the growth mindset children, were a lot more likely to persist despite difficulty because they were praised for their effort. They were praised for, how much they stuck it out in something, their perseverance. So they're like, well, I can persevere. I can put in effort. I just got praised for that. And it's true. I am good at my effort. So they stuck it out at working on the puzzle. Because of them being praised for effort, they chose harder problems in the future in order to continue to learn. They select harder things because they're like, I'm great at effort. And then, of course, because of that and because they're not it's not about their identity, they enjoyed themselves a whole lot more. They had more fun in the process, got more done, and learnt more. Okay? So basically, if you haven't already grasped, praising effort and strategies is what's going to foster a growth mindset, and that's what encourages persistence and sticking it out and consistency and seeing something through. Praising intelligence alone fosters a fixed mindset. So this makes children more likely to avoid challenges. So when you're working with children, and not even working with children, when you're dealing with a child, your niece, your nephew, whoever it is, remember, when they do something, try to remember, praise the effort. Get them excited to try things, okay? I don't think it's necessary to tell your child, wow, you're so smart, you're so smart, you're so intelligent, you're so smart. It's not really achieving anything, okay? And I think it's really healthy to get children from a very young age to be process driven, to be driven for the sake of being involved and for the sake of competing and for the sake of just, being part of a group and doing something and learning, not necessarily I have to win that thing, I have to win, because the problem with this is me going on a tangent, but I have a huge issue with this idea of a participation medal for every single person and no one gets a first prize and no one. That's because you've taught children a fixed mindset, okay? If you have to give everyone a fucking participation medal, it's because you're going down the fixed mindset route where you're praising them for intelligence or praising them for these innate abilities, okay? If you can truly teach a child that we are here to learn about, the journey, the effort, perseverance, then they get more value out of the effort and the journey, and they are way more okay with seeing someone win and seeing someone lose. I think it's very healthy and natural to teach children to, and this is backed by studies, mind you, like psychology. I've looked so much into it. I know I'm not a parent, but I think it's very healthy to allow children to experience what the real world is going to be like. There's going to be winners and losers for the rest of your life moving forward. And I think it's healthy to introduce that at a young age, as long as you're fostering, of course, the growth mindset, as long as you're fostering this idea of effort is what matters. Effort is what is the most important thing. Yes, this person won, but look how much fun you had. Look at all the effort you did. Look how much better you are now than when you first started practicing how to run, or when you first started doing this. Look at the journey that you've gone on, That's, I think, really important. Okay, the next one is, it's known as the Mindset and Academic Achievement Study. This is done in 2007, but the study title is Implicit Theories of Intelligence Predict Achievement Across an Adolescent Transition. So the researchers were Carol Dweck, Lisa Blackwell, and Carly Tresniowski. I hope I've pronounced that properly. The objective for this study was to determine if students' mindset about intelligence predicted their academic success. So the method, they got 373 students as they transitioned from 7th grade to 8th grade. So these kids are a bit older. They assessed their beliefs about intelligence. So they basically, in like an interview questionnaire format, they were able to assess what they thought about their own intelligence and kind of how they thought about their own intelligence. So they were able to put them into categories. Does this child have a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset? Then they tracked their math grades over 2 years, okay? The results were that students that were in the category for growth mindset improved their math grades significantly over time. They worked harder and were more resilient when facing the challenges, and students with a fixed mindset showed little to no improvements in their grades. They just maintained whatever grade they had at the start, and they were more likely to give up when facing difficult challenges. So again, the conclusion in this one is that your mindset directly affects your academic success. Your perception of your own abilities affects your academic success, okay? And a lot of these kids in these studies, they're all starting off at the same ability in mathematics, but the ones with the growth mindset, because they're just putting themselves, it's a numbers game. They're putting themselves out there more. There are more chances of learning from your challenges and your failures. So then again, because of that learning, that positive feedback loop, then there's more chances of succeeding moving forward. You learn more, you put yourself out there, and then you get to where you want to be, okay? And of course, another conclusion is that encouraging a growth mindset in students can predict long-term success. So we know that that's been proven again and again and again. So the key takeaways from her research, especially with the children, is that how you praise children matters. So remember, praising effort and strategies leads to a more persistent and resilient child. Teaching children and teenagers and adults, really, this is with anyone, but teaching individuals about brain plasticity really helps, because when you understand that intelligence can grow and you can grow on all these other things and your brain is malleable and it can change and things can evolve, when you truly believe that, then your approach to learning is going to be different to someone who thinks this is fixed, okay? Mindset predicts achievement. So when you do have the growth mindset, your achievements and your performance is better over time, and also your enjoyment of that task. Even though we're praising effort and not outcome, ironically, the outcome is actually better for people whose effort was praised. And interventions can help. So teaching a growth mindset can actually reverse negative academic trends. So people that were always in a fixed mindset who then start learning, or who start getting praised for a growth mindset and who start learning, wow, I'm really valuing everything I'm learning from a growth mindset, they start to change how they perceive their own abilities. And then it's just obvious in their work and their effort and how much they stick something out. So yeah, to summarize, before I get into how we're going to change these things, let's look at number one, the danger of a fixed mindset on effort. So if you believe that needing effort means that you're not naturally smart, then this is going to create a fear of looking incompetent. And think about it from your perspective. So this is not just children, this is everyone. This is adults. This happens. People right now, you can look at everyone around you. You're going to be able to identify who has a fixed mindset, who has a growth mindset. And a lot of people who have either mindset, they put that onto other people. They unintentionally will put that onto you. This is your strengths. These are not your strengths. You should be going, don't go down that path. So I think it's really important to be aware of, how am I being spoken to by maybe my parents or my teachers or the people around me based on their mindset versus my mindset. Okay. So if you think that needing to put in effort means you're not naturally smart, you're going to be scared to look incompetent, you're going to not put effort into things that you think you might fail in, and therefore you've reached your ceiling well before that ceiling actually exists, okay? This then traps them into wanting to appear intelligent but avoiding hard work, okay? Because for them, hard work means that you're not innately smart, okay? And you'll see this in a lot of people around you. You're like, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Oh, it's just like, it's not really my thing. Or they'll come up with reasons why they're not even going to try that thing because they've already established in their head, it's not worth it for me to fail this thing because I'm not going to put myself through that. Reaction to failure. So in hypothetical scenarios, it also impacts your reaction to failure because when you fail at something, people with a growth mindset look at that and say, I need to use better strategies. I need to use better strategies. So, for example, in a failed relationship, someone with a growth mindset is going to kind of dissect that relationship and think, did I do anything wrong in that? And if I did, what was it? Did I communicate properly? What was I doing? What can I learn from this? What strategies can I use that are better than the ones that I've used? The same for like a physical running race, or the same for how you approach studying for an exam. You could have been like, wow, I would only go to half my tutorials. Maybe I should go to all the tutorials and see if that makes a difference. Maybe I should dedicate, maybe 2 more extra hours on that subject a week, whatever the fuck it is. But you look at strategies. You fail at something, and then you think, what strategies didn't work for me, or what strategies could work for me? And then you put those strategies in place and you try again, okay? Whereas fixed mindset, they just assume that they're defeated. I'm defeated. A relationship breaks down and they're like, this happened to me. This happened to me. They won't take ownership of it, or they won't even try and dissect it to see if they had ownership of it. They're the kind of people that if they ran a race and nothing went well, then, oh, it was an injury, oh, it was the weather, it's just that, oh, this happened. They'll blame all thbut to blame themselves means that they themselves are just not good enough at that thing. People with basically a fixed mindset are going to judge their ability based on one single failure, and people with a growth mindset don't do that. Now, it also changes your motivation, obviously, based on everything we spoke about. And interestingly, it impacts your honesty and identity. So in these studies with children and teenagers, students were asked to report their test scores, quote unquote, anonymously, and 40% of the students that were praised for their intelligence lied by inflating their scores, okay? So they basically, when they know that it's going to be anonymous, they will pretend that their scores are a lot higher because they're like, my identity is in my intelligence. People have to believe I'm intelligent, so I now feel forced to lie. And it suggests that basically their self-worth is tied to their perceived abilities, innate abilities, or their perceived intelligence. So it makes it really difficult for them to admit their struggles, makes it really difficult for them to ask for help because that in their mind equals, well, I mustn't be smart enough, I mustn't be good enough, I'm not going to, And then lastly, before I go into how we're going to change it, let's talk about the distribution of mindset and growth and fixed mindset. So about 40% of people hold a fixed mindset, about another 40 hold a growth mindset, and about 20, it's kind of undecided. It's a little bit in the middle because you can kind of sit in the middle where it's not like debilitating, I absolutely cannot fail, but you still struggle to come across, you're kind of sitting in the middle. You've been getting a bit of both, where you are praised for your intelligence, you do really value your intelligence, but you also are able to work a bit hard. So it's kind of sitting in the middle there. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, how do we change? Okay, so developing a growth mindset, it's going to transform how you approach challenges, how you deal with setbacks, how you overcome setbacks, how you learn something difficult in every area of your life. And, I think for absolutely everyone, the amount of people that right now are sitting, listening, being like, I wish I could study this, but I'm just not smart. This is how you're going to change your mindset, because you can achieve anything you put your mind to, even if it means multiple failures in order to get there. This is the problem. I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, you can achieve anything you put your mind to. And I tried to put my mind to this and then I failed. But what did you do once you failed? That's the question. It's not about I don't want to fail. It's what do I do when I fail? Because if you fail and you're like, oh, not for me, I'm fucking out of here, then of course you're never going to achieve that thing. Then of course that's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, oh, this is bullshit. It's not true. Whatever you put your mind to, you can't do. Versus someone else is like, wow, I failed. Wow, I realized I have to study so much more. I've got to do so much more. I've got to speak to so many more people. I was not prepared. One of the best things you can learn is when you're not prepared and then you think, how can I be better prepared? Okay. So number one, I want you to really learn to embrace, and more importantly, I want your task for yourself this year to seek out challenges that you think might prove what your limitations are going to be, or you think might where you're going to be faced with your limitations. I want you to make friends with your limitations. Don't avoid them. I want you to get to that point where you are like, I'm trying to find my limit. So that way I can learn how I'm going to push past it next time, okay? So if you avoid your limitations, then you're going to avoid anything that's going to put you in a position of vulnerability or in a position where you could potentially grow. So then it's going to make you more stagnant and likely fearful. So for example, I'll give an example. When I used to teach Pilates, there was always growth versus fixed. There was two groups of people. I'd always ask, does anyone have any injuries, anything at all, anything, whatever, like what? And people would obviously tell me what their injuries or conditions or whatever were. We'd start the class, and I'd love teaching a difficult class. I loved to make it a challenge, and I would do it on purpose because I wanted everyone to get a lot out of it. And I would say, you're welcome to take a rest whenever you take a rest. You're welcome, whatever. And there's the group of people that would literally be doing something, trembling, and then they would fail out of it. And I would see their faces and there'd be this huge smile. They're shaking their head like, fuck, this is so hard. And then they just go straight back into it again. They'll be like, I'm taking a breather. I'm doing it again. I'm doing it as close to the end as possible. Then there was the people that would do something and it'd get difficult, and then they'd like sit right up and then like start rubbing their shoulder or whatever. And I'd go up and say, oh, are you okay? They're like, well, I've just got this old shoulder injury. And I'm like, no, you don't, cunt, because I asked if everyone's fine. I asked if there's everything. You've come into my class several times. You're just saying that because you've got a fixed mindset. You've come across something that's more challenging than you thought you could. And instead of being like, I've met my fucking limit, I'm making friends with my limitations, it is what it is, you're instead looking at it as, no, fuck this. There's a reason why I couldn't do it, or there's this. And so you come across this and then they kind of go blank. They're kind of annoyed at me because I was kind of that representation of that's your limit, okay? And I remember when I do classes, I fail all the fucking time in classes, but I always would, every time I'd fail, I would laugh. I'd make myself laugh, and I'll be like, I've met my fucking match. I've met my limit in this exercise. Now this is what I know I have to push past next time. This is where I know where I want to be increasing my strength in this thing or my endurance or whatever. So you look at it as like a fun challenge. So that's a small example of how you can apply that to physical tasks, difficult physical tasks that you can push through and you can notice improvement, and it becomes really fun. It becomes a game. So it could be from a fun game to something that represents I'm a failure. So you've got to pick which path you're going to go down. And the best way to learn that is to embrace and seek out challenges. Seek out challenges that will let you know where your ceiling of ability currently stands, not where it's fixed, where it currently stands, and what you can do to push past it, okay? So the same thing goes for people that want to start podcasting or want to start doing a YouTube channel or videos, basically. They are so terrified to post that first video because they're like, if this doesn't do well, I'm a fuckwit. I'm a fuckwit because here's this me being vulnerable, putting myself out there, and it's got like 3 likes and no one. So with a fixed mindset, it's almost like not necessarily perfectionism. It's not that you're trying to make it perfect. You're just like, if this doesn't do well, what's that saying about my abilities? And then it's going to really impact my self-esteem, my identity. I just absolutely can't do it. Versus growth mindset, you think, I have to put this video out. I'm going to have to start slaying some fucking dragons so then I can start getting better content and more consistent, and I can start reaching my audience. It's almost like when you got the growth mindset, it's almost like you're like, I expect rubbish at the beginning. I'm expecting it. And when you expect it, then when it is shit, you're like, well, I expected this. It's fine. I know that I have to go through this in order for it to be better. I'm aware of that. If I have to be good at everything I set out to do, then it's going to limit my pool of things that I can actually do with my life, because for almost everything else, I'm going to have to be shit at it in order to be better. You have to embrace and seek out your ceiling, your limit, your challenges. Expect it to be shit in a funny way, being like, like cringe, just upload. Oh, it's good enough to put up. I've got to be happy enough with it. I'm going to upload it and just grin and bear it. And if I'm trying to get better, okay, I won't read the comments or I won't whatever, like it's fine, but just get the fucking work out there. And then I start getting the ball rolling. I feel more comfortable. I feel more and then I'm able to, feel very confident in my work and it shows. Now, I want you to also say, instead of saying, I'm not good at this is still in part 1, like point 1, which is embrace and seek out challenges. Instead of saying, I'm not good at this, I want you to learn how to say, I'm learning this. I am learning this, because there's no ceiling to knowledge. None. The biggest thing I want you to value in your life is your acquisition of knowledge. So if you are always telling yourself, I am learning, then you are saying I'm acquiring knowledge. I'm acquiring what I need to be acquiring. And the way you approach that mentally and emotionally is so much kinder. It's so much more exciting. It's so much better. And it's just a simple change in your phrase. You do not know more. Are you going to say, I'm not good at this? Unless you don't care about not being good at it. If you're like, I don't give a fuck that I'm not good at basketball, then fine, say I'm not good at basketball. That's fine. But in general, if it's something that you would like I'm not good at languages. I wish I could learn a language. Say I'm learning. I'm learning at my own pace, but I'm learning a language, okay? And I will improve. So number 2, I want you to, and this is similar to the first one, but slightly different. I want you to aim to fail every so often. Like the goal is to fail, because I want you to get used to it. I want you to get used to failing. Now, ideally, maybe don't set that goal to fail a subject at university, because that's fucking expensive to do that and you're going to fucking sit the thing again. But what are things that you can fail in that make you be like, okay, that failure has not meant that I can never try this again, that I can never get better at this again. Okay, so I had set myself a challenge of running 10Ks in under 50 minutes. And to this day, I have not done that, right? Does that mean that it's never going to happen for me? No. And I'm well aware of why it hasn't happened, is because I've been inconsistent as fuck with my running training. I'm so inconsistent. It's a fact. Am I a good runner? Yes, I can run 22 kilometers. And good or whatever, call it good. I don't care, whatever you want to label it. Many people wouldn't consider me a good runner. It doesn't matter. Do I think I can run? Yes, I can fucking run. Do I think I could run faster? Yes, but have I still not cracked that goal? I have not cracked that goal. And it has not affected me, because I'm like, I know that the strategies are not the best they could be, and I need to implement better strategies in order to achieve that goal. And I'm okay with that. And I'm okay with putting those strategies in place and working harder for it. So, but it's something that I've failed at. I've said it and I've gone for that run and I've just not cracked it. And it's humbling in a good way. So what are things that you can set out to do where you are going to fail? Okay. What is your limit at the gym? How good are you at cooking? How good are you at whatever task you set yourself out to do? Because only when you fail at something, are you able to learn what went right and what went wrong for you. If you are always winning, you are never faced with what is my actual winning strategy, because I've never known what's not gone right. I've never known what's actually failed. So that's where people actually get imposter syndrome. People that always do well, they get imposter syndrome, because they're like, why am I here? How did I get here? And they're a bit like, oh, should I be here? Should I not? If you fail, win, fail, succeed, setback, and then you get somewhere, I can tell you don't have imposter syndrome. You're like, I fucking work my ass off to be here. I know what it takes to get here. I know what it takes to fail along the way to get here. I know the strategies that work. I know the strategies that don't work. I'm no fucking imposter. I got here through fucking hard work, merit, failure, trial, and effort. So there's no imposter bullshit going on right now. I am here through all of these things. But yeah, if you seamlessly arrive somewhere, sometimes it does feel like a bit of imposter, because you're like, I don't know how the fuck I got here. I'm not quite sure, right? And that's scary. Not that it's wrong. Congratulations for getting there with no like stumbles, but it's where you're less likely to be confident in your abilities. I think people think that failing will put a blow on your abilities, but I think it actually strengthens your confidence in your abilities because now you've got a clear idea of strategies, okay? When you fail, obviously, you're able to analyze what went wrong, what you can improve, rather than seeing it as like proof of your incompetence. So every time you do fail from now on, you're going to ask yourself, what went wrong and what can I improve? Don't be like, I'm incompetent, because you're wasting your fucking time. You've got one fucking life on this earth. Don't waste your time. And then ask yourself, what can I learn from this instead of why did I fail? You say, what can I learn? All right? There's a million things that you can learn. And if you can, keep a growth journal. If you are an owner of the brain journal, my brain journal, there is something for growth every single day, growth, connection, and purpose. Every single day you are filling that out. So this is where you can keep your growth journal, okay? Number 3, I want you to make learning the goal and have more things that you do that focus on the journey and not the end goal, or at least have a mix of those things, okay? So things where you're focusing on the journey is reading books. That's a prime example where you're reading a book. You don't read a book to get to the end. You read a book because you're enjoying the journey of the book, obviously, okay? Taking courses that you're actually interested in, the kind of course that you don't want to end. Like there were certain courses at uni that I'm like, this is not a journey. This is I've got to get to the end. This is so painful. Then there were other courses that I'm like, I'll be so sad when this course ends because I'm living for this, everything about it. I loved certain courses, right? So you want to take courses that you enjoy, that you don't want to end. And then it proves to you that effort can be about the journey. A great one is to join a gym, or CrossFit's great for this because CrossFit has a great community where you realize this is about the journey. It's about my strength journey or whatever, and I'm having such a good time, and I actually don't have to I can have all these goals that I want to hit along the way, but I'm not hell-bent on it. It has to be in 6 months. It has to be in a year. You're there for the journey, and you realize rocking up, having that routine, having your community, the people that, push you and inspire you and you can laugh together. That's for the journey, okay? So find things that you can have a goal where the goal is the journey, all right? That is going to make you more effort focused and not outcome focused. And it's a great place to be in because you start to enjoy yourself 1,000 times more. I can guarantee you, if you are effort focused and not journey focused, your enjoyment out of life will skyrocket. That is a fucking guarantee, okay? Then also watch, expand your perspective on things as well. Like watch TED Talks, obviously you're listening to my podcast, so fucking well done, love you so much. Attend workshops, expand your perspective on things, right? Then, of course, speak to people in your circle, in your network that have a growth mindset, and ask them questions about their failures and their goals. And when you ask someone who has a growth mindset about their failures, it's so refreshing to hear them talk about how they approach their failures and how they look at their failures. It's not this like, oh, I'm mortified. They look at it with kind eyes. They look at it as like, and then this happened and it didn't do well, but they're not embarrassed, they're not mortified, and they're able to talk about how it actually shaped where they are now, right? So really speak to people, speak to your mentors, speak to people around you who have a growth mindset, and it's actually quite refreshing. Number 4, start using the word yet a lot more in your vocabulary. So if you say, I can't do this, then swap it out for, I can't do this yet. I can't speak French yet. I can't run 10 kilometers under 50 minutes yet. Okay? And it feels good saying that, because the moment you put the yet, it says, I'm on a fucking journey. I'm on a fucking journey, and it will happen at some point if I want it to, but I'm on that journey. Number 5, this is so much harder than it sounds for people that are not used to this, but seek out constructive feedback so then it becomes easier to accept it when you're not seeking it out, okay? So this is where you actually have to ask people and say, I'm doing this thing, like I'm doing this journey of self-growth. I need to start, and you can say this to your friends and your family, I need to start seeking out constructive feedback. So I want you, like let's say you start that CrossFit thing. You say, I want constructive feedback. Tell the PT, tell the coach, I want constructive feedback. Seek it out at the end of every class. How did you think I went on that? What do you think I could have? Like, ask. At the start, it's like, you're telling me what I'm doing wrong. Like it feels confronting, but then it starts getting easier and easier and easier. And then you're excited for it because you realize, wait a minute, every time I got feedback, hey, sometimes I don't agree, which is fine. You don't have to agree every time. But a lot of the times I got over the fact that it was like, oh God, that hurt. But then I put it into practice and it worked. Now you're hungry for it. Now you're like, and of course, you know me, I've spoken about this 1,000 times. You have to ask for feedback from the right sources. Don't ask for people's opinion when they're not qualified to give you your opinion. Obviously, this is huge. But if it's like your coach, if it's a mentor, if it's someone who's done a similar thing, say your friend's a writer and you want to start writing and you respect their writing and you can be like, give me feedback on this. I want feedback. We're so scared to share our work because we're so scared of negative feedback. But instead of negative, say, this is constructive. You might say something that I genuinely don't agree with because I've got a different style, but you might say something that will strike a chord and put everything clicks and all the pieces click together. And I think, yes, thank you for that feedback. That makes sense. Okay. So you have to seek it out. Seek it out at least once a week, if not twice a week. That's your challenge for the rest of the year. Seek out constructive feedback. If you have a good relationship with your boss, if your boss is an asshole, ask them for constructive feedback. Okay. It's very good. And then when you get it unsolicited, then it's like, yeah, I'm used to this shit. I love this shit. Fucking, come at me. I remember when people would give me feedback on my podcast at the beginning, and because it was so like vulnerable to put it out, I'd be like, and I'd like overthink it. And now when I get it, sometimes the feedback's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm like, nah, that doesn't align. Like people are like, I don't like ads. I'm like, well, that's how this podcast exists. So I don't have to take that feedback on board. But then other people will say, like, I got this feedback once that I go, when I'm interviewing someone and someone's like, you go too much in the microphone. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I do. I'll take that feedback on. I'll be more aware. And I'll try not to when the other person's talking because I just get so involved in what they're saying and I don't realize. So that's good feedback. It's something that they didn't like that I was doing, but it's true and it's good feedback, right? So you take that shit on board. And then number 6, wait, there's 2 more. Number 6 is celebrate effort more than your results. So this is like, where is it possible for you to really lean into the effort of doing something, instead of always checking, like maybe you put together a really nice video and then you upload it and then all you're doing is refreshing, how many likes did I get, that's you trying to celebrate the end result. Your marker of something's good enough is how many likes you get. And I remember I used to get into that trap maybe when I kind of started the podcast and the Instagram was starting to grow, I would get into that trap of looking at how successful the posts were and the podcast posts. Whereas now when I upload something, I often won't even look at it for another 12 hours because I'm like, I really like what I uploaded. That was a really nice thing. Next, so I celebrated the effort. And then I don't really look at it. And by the time I do look at the numbers, so much time has passed that it doesn't affect me whether the numbers are good or bad. So that's one thing that you can do where you start to look at how can I celebrate effort? How can I go in and make this workout all about the effort, even if I know I did a better effort last week? I can, I'm not going to look at the fact that my numbers were better last week. I'm just really celebrating the fact that I came, I showed up, I fucking did the thing. That's awesome, right? So praise yourself for hard work and persistence, not just success. So there are many examples right now where you can praise yourself for hard work and persistence where there was no marker of quote unquote success. Okay. Instead of saying to yourself, about your intelligence, you can say, I worked really hard on that. I worked really hard on this. I worked really hard on that. Look at what do you value the most. When I look back at the things where I worked hard on, I actually value the fact that I had to work hard on that thing. I like that I had to work hard and that, yes, I got a result out of it, but the thing that brings me the most joy is the effort. I like earning that thing. It felt good. Enjoy the small wins because the small wins are in the journey. It's not this one big win hanging over your head. And then number 7, remember that setbacks don't define you, but your response to your setbacks does define you. Okay? Because you could have 1,000, the person you admire the most, the person who's up there on a pedestal for you of how you want to be, they could have had 10,000 more setbacks than you. but look at where they are and how you value where they're at in their life. It's because their setbacks didn't define them. How they approached their setbacks defined them. So it's, how resilient am I? How often or how many times am I willing to pick myself up and brush myself off? And this is extremely different to knowing when to quit when you don't like something and it's not working for you. I've got a whole episode on that, and I think it's called Knowing When to Quit. But this is, I want to get better at this. I'd like to keep going at this. So I could have 1,000 setbacks, but as long as I'm focusing on the journey and enjoying the journey and the process and the effort, then I could be doing this indefinitely without focusing on, the setback and this, I'm now a failure and I can't reach a setback again because it means that I'm actually innately not smart or innately not good enough. All right. I want you to visualize long-term success and what long-term success looks like, rather than focusing on these short-term struggles that you think, that's a roadblock, I can't do it. That's a roadblock, I can't. Because if you focus on the roadblocks and you focus on these setbacks, you're likely, if you've got a fixed mindset, you're likely to not, you stop and then you're not going to go through with it. But if you're someone who's going to look at that and be like, okay, but I'm looking at the bigger picture and I'm looking at, over the next 10 years, is this tiny setback going to matter? What if I kept going at a slower pace, or, even if I had to go back and revise and go, what could this look like in 10 years if I kept this up? What could it look like? So I want you to focus more on the long term. Don't underestimate what you are able to do in a year or in 5 years or in 10 years. And Tony Robbins says this, but something along the lines of you overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10. So don't be too hell-bent on the timeline, because that's when you're going to think, I'm a failure, I'm not going to do it, and then you throw it in the bin. Instead, think, if I'm persistent, even through the setbacks, what could this look like in 5 years or in 10 years' time? Guys, that is the podcast episode of today. One of my favorite topics ever, and I can't believe I haven't ever done a fully fledged episode on growth mindset versus fixed mindset. I think this episode, everything that you take on, and if you continue to do further reading on Carol Dweck and her studies, it will change your life. I'm telling you, it can change your life. If you're someone who's got a fixed mindset, this is game changer behavior. So I'm very pumped for you. Anyway, that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please, for the sake of the podcast, please like and share the podcast as well. It really, really helps me out. It helps my podcast out. It's thanks to you guys that the podcast has grown the way it's grown, and we just want to keep growing it and reaching bigger audiences and growing our little bean community. So thank you so much. Like, share, review, 5 stars, obviously. And that is all. As always, remember, be kind to yourself, be kind to your brain. Don't take shit from anyone, and especially don't take shit from yourself. Danke.